Hello, my friends, and welcome to Grandma's Last Goodbye, where stories aren't just told. They're stitched into the fabric of who we are, woven with love, loss, and the kind of strength that comes when the world tries to tell you you're no longer needed. I'm Lucille Grant, a 78-year-old woman who's learned that dignity isn't something you beg for, it's something you build. And if this story touches a quiet part of your heart, I ask you to like this video, share it with someone who feels invisible, and subscribe to Grandma's Last Goodbye for more true tales of quiet strength and earned clarity. Because today I'm sharing the story of how my daughter handed me a nursing home brochure on my 70th birthday, how it landed in my cake with a smear of pink frosting, and how that moment became the spark that lit a fire I didn't know I still had. A fire that turned a lifetime of memories into a legacy that will outlast us all. It was a chilly Michigan morning, my 78th birthday, and I woke up with no expectations because after enough years, birthdays stop feeling like celebrations, don't they? But I still slipped on my red cardigan, the one my husband Thomas gave me for our 25th anniversary. Its elbows worn, but its threads holding memories of laughter and late-night talks, and I baked a small cake, just enough for one candle. Lit it, and sat at the dining table in the house we built board by board, memory by memory. Waiting for something, a knock, a smile, a sign I was still part of this family. Instead, my daughter Mara walked in. No happy birthday, no hug, just a glossy brochure for Maple Oak Senior Living that she tossed at me, hitting my cheek, not hard, but sharp enough to startle. Before it slid into the cake, smearing frosting across a picture of a smiling, elderly couple by a fake fireplace, and she smirked, saying, "Better sooner than dead in our kitchen," pointing at the trembling candle as she added, "You can't even blow that out without wheezing. So let's think ahead, shall we? Because you're not contributing anymore, sitting here knitting blankets for no one, acting like your memories pay bills." And she flicked crumbs off the brochure, dropped it back on the table, and walked out, her heels clacking, her voice trailing like smoke. Happy birthday, I guess, leaving me in a silence so heavy it felt like an answer. I didn't cry or speak, just stared at the wax pooling beside the brochure's pastel promises of bingo nights and communal pudding, realizing I wasn't part of their plans anymore, just a problem to be managed, a cluttered tab they were tired of balancing. But if you've ever felt like your presence is a burden, like your love takes up too much space, let me tell you, you are not clutter, you are a story, and you can rewrite the ending. So please hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to know they're seen, and subscribe to Grandma's Last Goodbye. Because this is where we honor the stories that matter. That house wasn't just brick and wood. It was a promise Thomas and I built. Hammering nails, planting tulips, hanging a porch swing that creaked every summer evening, where Mara took her first steps, where Thomas carved pumpkins with our granddaughter Emmy, where I sewed quilts that held our lives' stories. But over the years, I watched it empty out of meaning, like air seeping from a tire, yet I stayed, cooking, cleaning, careful not to be too loud, too slow, too in the way, thinking I was preserving family love, home, until that brochure hit my cheek and I saw they were erasing me. Let me take you back to when it changed. When Thomas got sick, stage 4 cancer whispering through his cough just after his 65th birthday, still laughing like a boy, saying, "Let's make this count." So I retired early from my job as an accounting professor, cashed in my pension, sold our cabin, learned to blend kale into smoothies he hated, becoming a wife, then a nurse, then a widow, and after he passed, the silence was unbearable. The house too clean, the routines meaningless. But when Mara got engaged with dreams of a new house, an open floor plan, a walk-in pantry, I gave her what was left, the account Thomas never touched, enough for a down payment, telling her gently, "This is for your future. Just promise you'll build a home." And she cried, hugged me, said I'd always have a place. 5 years ago, I moved in, not with a suitcase, but with folded quilts, baking pans, framed photos of a life built slow and honest, my knees aching, hands less steady. But I cooked, folded, sewed curtains, taught Emmy to make pot roast and write cursive, and at first they called it helpful, then expected, then annoying, until one night over spaghetti I'd simmered for 6 hours, Mara said, "Oh, you didn't have to cook. We were going to order Thai," and they ate in front of the TV, leaving my food to cool. They stopped calling me to the table, pushed my rocking chair to the garage, stuffed my quilt with Thomas's college shirt under old wrapping paper, and Mara opened my mail. "Just checking," she said, repainted the kitchen, took down my calendar, locked the laundry room, saying, "You're not a prisoner, it's just boundaries," and I began to shrink. Stopped baking, humming, suggesting walks or movies, because every offer met a sigh, a glance, a silence sharp enough to slice bread. And I told myself, it was a phase, they were busy, modern life is loud, but deep down I knew I'd become furniture, a ghost in soft shoes, staying even when they forgot my birthday, rolled their eyes at my corrections, left me off the Christmas card list, just immediate family this year, and locked the pantry because Thomas would have said, "You don't walk out just because it gets hard." But he wasn't here, and I was forgetting what home felt like. The final straw wasn't the brochure, but a moment I wasn't meant to hear. Folding dish towels when laughter drifted from the garage, too much air, not enough joy, and I peeked to see Mara live streaming, her phone propped up, chirping about Declutter December, pointing at my rocking chair, the one Thomas built, saying, "It's sweet, but it's in the way. Mom sits here feeding pigeons like Snow White, only it's just feathers and poop." And laughing emojis floated up as she added, "If she dies before Christmas, we won't even have to clear this garage," with a shrug. She's wheezing like a broken accordion. I'm just being real. Then blurring my face in old family photos, calling me background noise now, guest star turned ghost. And that was when I stepped back, not gasping, not crying, but walking to my room where the birthday candles sat melted, picking up the brochure, reading its promises of snow geese and spa services, sliding it into my purse, not to accept it, but to remind me what they thought I deserved, because they weren't waiting for me to die. They were already erasing me, and I knew it was time to respond, not with revenge, but with a correction, because I was Mrs. Grant, the accounting professor they called Grant the Grit, who taught students to balance more than books, to respect value you can't appreciate on paper, and I remembered how to audit. There was a time Mara looked at me with admiration, called me mom, brought me tea when I worked late, but after Thomas's cancer, I sold our car, canceled the kitchen remodel, withdrew from my retirement fund to care for him, and when he died holding my hand, I whispered, "I'll keep my promise," to protect our home. But Mara's dreams, her new house, her husband Josh's failed ventures, meant I co-signed their mortgage, fronted the down payment from Thomas's life. Thinking family didn't need fine print, and at first it was warm, Mara making tea, Josh fixing light bulbs, Emmy on my lap with cookie crumbs. But after the deed transferred to their names, simpler for taxes, Mara said, the warmth cooled. I had to knock before entering the kitchen. My rocking chair didn't match the decor. My quilts lined the dog's crate. My name vanished from the mailbox. Bills came addressed to resident. And when I clipped my name to the mailbox, it was gone by morning. One night, I found the table set for 3. No chair for me, Mara saying, "Oh, we didn't think you were hungry." So I ate toast in the laundry room, found my medical bill marked in red. "We're not paying this." And when I confronted her, she said, "You should be grateful we let you stay. You're not paying rent." And I realized she saw my presence as debt, not legacy, that I'd co-signed my own erasure. Handing away the house Thomas and I dreamed of, its porch swing, its tulip window box. Thinking it was a gift. But a gift without boundaries becomes expectation, and I'd never imagined I'd be treated as the burden I carried for them. So I stopped asking, started remembering in silence, and one afternoon, dusting the piano no one played, I wrote in my planner. They moved me in as a helper, filed me under clutter, but I remembered the contract of the heart, and I'd honor it by not letting them tear it up without consequence, because trust is an investment, and I was ready to balance the books. If you're still with me, feeling the weight of being overlooked, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to know their story matters, and subscribe to Grandma's Last Goodbye, because this is where we reclaim our worth. The day after that birthday, I opened my sewing cabinet, pulled out Maggie Cohen's business card, Thomas's attorney, fierce, whip-smart, who'd told me, "If you ever need to protect something, call me," and I did, saying, "I need to redo my will and sell the house, not to Mara, but to someone who deserved it," meeting Maggie at a quiet cafe where waiters remembered my PDA days, telling her everything, not in tears, but facts. How I signed over the deed, ate in the laundry room, found my quilts in the dog crate, got a brochure for bingo nights on my birthday, and she didn't ask why I waited, just said, "Let's do this right." We drafted a new will, a blueprint of intent, giving the house to the Legacy Quilt Collective, a nonprofit preserving stories through textile and memory, where my quilts, each stitch a piece of my life, would be history, not clutter, curated with plaques reading, donated by Lucille Grant, folk artisan, and the East Wing named the Lucille Grant Room, while I left Mara the garage, just its walls and roof, no land, no plumbing. No driveway, a surgical gift that made Maggie raise her eyebrows, saying she can't even access it, and I replied, exactly, sipping my tea because it wasn't savage, it was measured. We filed the paperwork quietly. I arranged the sale while Mara was at a conference, showed the collective every room, told stories of Emmy tying her shoes in the hallway, Thomas planting the maple tree, and they promised to preserve every detail. I packed one suitcase, not escaping, but returning ownership of my life, mailing the will via registered mail with a card to Mara saying, "Thank you for the garage," and settled 2 blocks away in a small apartment with east-facing windows, a cedar bookshelf, and a quilting circle where I baked blueberry muffins and became Lucille again, no longer a burden. Mara turned the will reading into content, live streaming in my old living room, dressed in cashmere and pearls, saying, "Mom always said this house had memories, of course she left it to me," basking in hearts and so sweet comments, but the lawyer read, "To the Legacy Quilt Collective, I donate my residence, furnishings, heirlooms, and handmade works," and Mara blinked. "Wait, what?" as he continued, granting her only the garage, restricted to storage. No land or access, her face cracking. Confusion, disbelief, rage, saying, "This is a joke," she never said anything, and I stepped forward in my red cardigan saying, "You told me to think ahead, that I was a burden. You said it with a brochure and contempt, so I did think ahead, leaving the house where it belongs, with people who won't forget a birthday," and the chat exploded. "Go off, Queen," as I pulled out my notebook, saying, "I wrote down everything you said, not out of pettiness but clarity, to choose who'd inherit my life's work, not treat it as garbage." And I walked out, Emmy squeezing my hand, whispering, "They never saw you, but I did," making me feel lighter than I had in years, because the house wasn't just brick, it was a story, told without edits or shame. The Legacy Quilt Collective's opening wasn't extravagant, just a quiet unveiling, but the parking lot filled, a line curled around the block, reporters, students, old friends who remembered my cider donuts, a sign reading, "Memory is not clutter," and inside, my quilts glowed under spotlights, each with a brass plaque, "Lucille Grant, 1973, or "In Memory of Thomas, 1981. Even the frayed blanket Mara called rags, displayed with dignity, fairy lights strung across beams, making it feel like a summer porch, and the press called me the woman who avenged her life in quilts, but what I remember is Emmy's knock, holding a bag of cinnamon cookies made from my recipe, her eyes soft, saying, "I'm sorry, I knew what Mom was doing, I didn't stop her," and I stepped aside. No cameras. Just us in the textile library, organizing thread, labeling swatches, her hand on the table, and I said, "You're here now," seeing Thomas's gentle defiance in her, choosing soul over convenience. I changed my will again, leaving my designs, royalties, and endowment to Emmy, not Mara, with the condition she keep it slow, careful, stitched by hand, the Lucille Grant Fund for Memory and Craft, because legacy is earned by care, not owed by blood, and Mara never came to the center, her pride building thick walls. But I was at peace, because memory is an act of choosing to hold what matters and let go of what bruises. Mara's fall was subtle, her live streams spinning downsizing lies, but the internet remembered the frosting slap and her garage joke. Sponsors backed out and she lost enough, the house, the illusion, Emmy's belief. While I moved into my apartment, hung Thomas's wind chime, taught threading memory classes every Wednesday, where women stitched pain into beauty, and Emmy helped, not for guilt, but rhythm, taking Polaroids, organizing bins, asking, "Grandma, do you regret it?" And I said, "Only that I didn't do it sooner." Her laugh and hug enough, because legacy isn't brick or square footage, it's the first dinner after grief, the sound of slippers at midnight, the hum of someone breathing nearby, and I kept that, giving them what they valued, empty space, while I wove my threads into a story that lives on. If you've been forgotten, underestimated, told your love is a burden, know you're not alone, your story matters, and I'm Lucille Grant, taking my name back, inviting you to like, share, and subscribe to Grandma's Last Goodbye for more stories of grandmothers writing endings only we know how to stitch.